I just finished my first pumpkin house out of those carvable pumpkins that you can get at craft stores. I wanted to keep this one simple as I was kind of learning the technique, so I just bought some things from the dollhouse section of the craft store as well. This is like a little window that they were selling there, and I cut it into pieces to use for the door and window of my pumpkin. I tried a few different things to cut the pumpkin, like a Dremel tool and an X-Acto knife. I did really like my heated X-Acto knife that I was using there. It really glided through the pumpkin really well. After I cut it, I wanted to paint my pumpkin so it looked a little bit more realistic. I was kind of going for, I wanted it to look more like those heirloom pumpkins. I did start with a layer of kind of a primer just to make sure that the paint would stick better onto the pumpkins. I did a trial run of acrylic paint right onto the pumpkin, and it did scratch a little bit. It would be fine if you were just keeping it on a shelf or something, but since I'm going to be putting these in storage and out of storage every year, I just didn't want to have to worry about them scratching. So I did some primer. Then I just did some orange acrylic paint. And here I'm using milk paint just to give it kind of, that heirloom pumpkin look where it kind of has some stripes of different colors in it. So I did a brown milk paint first and I kind of wiped it off. And here I'm doing kind of a white milk paint. Again, wiping it off just here and there. I kind of splotched a little bit just to give it a little bit of texture. And once I was ready, or once I was happy with the texture, I let that dry. I used the milk paint on the door and the windows. I wanted the stem to look a little bit nicer. You can see here, I tried some homemade clay, air dry clay, and I hated it. So then there's the clay. I don't know, it was really cracky when it dried and I didn't like it. So this was take two. I decided to use this sisal rope and I cut it into about 6-inch strips and I unwound it and just glued it all the way around the stem. And I will eventually go ahead and paint it to kind of be a darker stem. I actually did a version 2 where I painted it with Mod Podge and I put cinnamon on it, which it made it smell really good and it did make it brown, which was kind of a cool color, but it was really messy. So this one I'm just gonna paint it. You'll see in a second. But here I glued all the way around. And then I just squeezed some glue in the center there, and then I'm gonna twist it and just hold it until the glue cools, just to kind of hold that in place. And you can just go ahead and, just catch any little pieces that you didn't catch before. I did think, not that this looks necessarily like a real pumpkin stem, but it did look a little bit better than the original pumpkin stem. So I did like this better than the original, so that was good, especially since I tried the clay and it totally failed. So anyway, so I started to like the shape, and once the glue dried, I did a layer of Mod Podge on there just to kind of, that rope is just I don't know, it was really frayy and I didn't want it to go everywhere, so did some Mod Podge, let that dry. Moved back to that door. Here I'm just putting some hinges on. The hinges just have these little teeny tiny nails in them, and the door is a real soft wood, so I didn't think that the nails would hold on their own. So I added some E6000 glue just to make it a little bit more durable. This isn't going to be the most durable option for a door. If I was going to have this for a kid who was playing with it all the time, I'd probably get a pre-made dollhouse door, but this is mostly going to be decorative. I might have some kids come and play with it a little bit here and there, but since it's mostly decorative, this should be fine. I didn't even need a hammer for the nails. I just kind of pushed them in there. And I did add just some really simple felt leaves just to make it look like it was kind of out in the pumpkin patch. And I think I used 4 leaves for each window. I'm just going to put them above each window, and you can see here I'm just kind of squeezing the 4 leaves together. and gluing them on top of the windows. I just hot glued those windows on. I don't think I showed that, but it's pretty easy. Just hot glued them over the little hole that I cut. And here we're moving back to the stem and just painting that, kind of a mixture of two browns. It's a little annoying to paint this rope, but just take your time, get in all those little creases. And once you've got that done, you've got yourself a little pumpkin house. It's pretty simple. The next one, I think I want to do some more details.